Good morning to Valeria Bizzari. Today we have this great honor of talking and interviewing Dr. Bizzari about her work as a philosopher and I would say mental care expert, because you invested a long time in taking care of the way in which we can take care of mental health issues. Before asking you some questions, I will briefly introduce you. So Dr. Bizzari currently works at the Husserl's Archive in Leuven, in Belgium. This is a great position because, these archives are a very lively center in which scholars can do research, especially on Husserl phenomenology. And Dr. Bizzari will explain us what is phenomenology and what do we do with it. Her research, in fact, is very much focused on phenomenology, philosophy of emotions, psychopathology. She has even worked at the University of Heidelberg with a project on Asperger's syndrome. And she focused on empirical investigations of intersubjectivity and its disruptions. Now, I would like to start by asking you, how do we link psychopathology and philosophy? How can philosophy help with psychiatric problems? So just a quick introductory question, reading your bio. What do we do with philosophy when we talk about psychiatric illnesses?
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here. For me, it's a real pleasure, and it's also an opportunity of self-reflection somehow. Your question is a big question, and it's also what I asked myself the very first time I tried to handle with psychopathology, but especially the very first time I entered the psychiatric hospital. So I have to admit that when I entered for the first time a psychiatric hospital because of my work, it was the last year of my PhD, which is 5 years ago. That it's not so much time ago, but it seems alive to me because in the meantime I have changed 3 countries and 3 jobs. Okay. So it's also quite emotional for me to recollect that time. So I was basically I was curious about intersubjectivity, and I worked a lot on emotion, as you said, so philosophy of emotions, but from a purely, theoretical perspective.
What is intersubjectivity? Yeah. What do you mean by intersubjectivity?
Yeah, I mean the way we engage with others, both from a practical perspective, but also from a deeper perspective, as to say what is the role of others in respect to the development of our own self, for instance. And this is the reason why I ask myself, okay, and what does it mean? What does it happen when our emotional life is somehow disrupted, when emotions are overwhelming, for instance? Or not. So I was very lucky because I had this opportunity to spend the last month of my PhD in a research center at psychiatric hospital close to Pisa, Stella Maris Institute. That is a very important center for the study of autism. So it was also by a coincidence that I have started to study autism. And so I never met anybody, with a diagnosis. And and the very first time I was there, I told myself, everything I studied is completely useless. I am completely
Oh,
yeah, because I think that
it
as
happens.
philosophers we tend sometimes to remain enclosed in our tower of
Mm-hmm.
thinking and to ruminate, to speculate a lot about important notions,
Mm-hmm.
important moral theories or metaphysical experiments. And the risk, of course, is to forget the concrete, the real life.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say that I almost immediately changed my mind
Mm.
because of a meeting. And again, we come back to the theme of intersubjectivity and how intersubjectivity, in
Ah.
a way, also shapes our own identity and our
Uh-huh.
own life. Because I followed for 3 months this guy with a diagnosis of high functioning autism. He self-diagnosed himself at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the opportunity to talk a lot to him, and he is a wonderful person and so funny, and I learned a lot from him. And at the end of my internship, so to say, I had developed my very first qualitative interview. But
What is a qualitative interview?
yeah, it's a questionnaire, but
Uh-huh.
it's not a statistic one, so to say. It's an open questionnaire, which is aimed to, in my case, to analyze the structure of subjectivity that are in temporality, corporeality, social capacities. But I have to, and usually I use me, but also very famous colleagues like Parnas and so on.
Yeah.
Usually we use open questions. So the
Mm-hmm.
main aim is to let the interviewee speak freely about herself, which is the main important aim.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, I was, still at the very stage of my research, and I needed help. So I used pictures. So I used picture in order to ask questions about specific topics like social needs, corporeal awareness, and so on. And at the end of the interview, I asked Matteo which one his favorite pictures, and he told me that his favorite was the one with the sea, because in his view, the sea is a concept.
Ah,
Yeah,
what does it mean?
and for me, I think that this was the main
Uh-huh.
the main important thing that I learned, because I learned that why not the sea can also be a concept, that diversity is a richness, can be also a richness, and on the other hand, philosophy can represent a powerful tool to understand the complexity of life, of a human being, and also to deal with such a complexity. So in order to answer your initial question, I think that philosophy has the tools to overcome labels that in mental health play, unfortunately, a strong role, and has also the power to account for the different nuances of our vulnerability, of our fragility, but also of our richness as a human being. Phenomenology in this sense is also important because according to phenomenology, we are all unique individuals and we are all different. And I think that this is also something that can contribute to a better understanding of mental disorders.
Thanks, Valeria. This story is really beautiful. I would like to say a little bit more here because I imagine you are, at the end, more or less at the end of your PhD. And we all know more or less that the PhD is a very scary experience of our lives where we have to prove that we can do research and mostly we actually don't know what we are researching, right? The research is exactly this mare magnum of possibilities. And you interview, and you are studying autism. I don't know if you have your own definition of autism you would like to share. And you are a phenomenologist. What does so you are a philosopher, but in particular a phenomenologist. So I'd be curious to know what phenomenology implies for you, what it means for you, and you have in front of yourself a living person. So finally, not just a book, but is a living human being that is showing you what the experience of having autism, being autistic, means for him. And he tells you that this is a concept. I would like us to stay a little bit more on this moment. How did phenomenology help you in this? How did you feel? What did that mean for you? Did this answer change anything about the definition of autism that you read in the books, in the DSM, and so on?
Yes, of course. So, firstly, I mean, for me, phenomenology is mostly the study of our experience. And in my view, this is the reason why it's so obvious that phenomenology is interested in other disciplines like psychopathology. So for me, it has always been something quite dogmatic in my view. And I also think that phenomenology provides us with a method that allows us to go deeper into the subjective structure. So, like to bracket in all of the other assumptions and to go and grasping the essence of subjectivity and or of the experience is something really powerful, but also really concrete at the same time. And of course, I think that that specific meeting changed a lot in myself also. Maybe if I hadn't met Matteo and his richness, because he also writes poems that are wonderful. I would never pursue this specific, study, like the study on eye function in autism. It happened to me many times that people ask me, for instance, at conferences and so on, why did you choose exactly eye function in autism? So I think that, this experience did influence me a lot, but there is also a methodological reason, a theoretical reason. I did choose this specific disorder because as phenomenologists, we can observe a pure intersubjective disorder, because unlike low functioning, and I also wanted to make a point, I don't like the distinction between low functioning, high functioning. It's for practical reason that I use these labels, but of course it's a spectrum, and it's not a pathology, of course. But it's interesting from a phenomenological perspective, because they have only that kind of disturbance, the disturbance of intersubjectivity, and that's it, because from a motor and cognitive perspective, they are more than efficient. So it's really fascinating. And yes, also my definition, so to say, my view about autism did change a lot, Firstly, because in any case, there are many definitions of autism, and the problem that I faced when I started studying this topic was that there are many of them, and they are divided between neurobiological explanation, poor reductionist explanations, and behavioral ones. And from a philosophical perspective, this is a huge gap that I wanted to fill somehow. They all use a very broad definition of intersubjectivity and of empathy in particular. And I also found them quite stigmatizing and very poorly inclusive, because there is one of the most famous, that is the male brain hypothesis, according to which autism is a typical male problem. But this is absolutely false, because there are many girls that are that, and this is another problem related to this kind of theories, are usually labeled as girls with eating disorder, because if you are a girl and you have intersubjective disorders, okay, you cannot have autism because it's a male problem. You probably are anorexic, for instance. So I also wanted to include in my interview female subjects. Yeah. So yeah, the definition also changed a lot, especially thanks to Matteo again, because he also used another wonderful expressions that I used for the title of my very first paper on autism, that is spontaneous transgressive. He told me that he feels like a spontaneous transgressive, and I think it's wonderful.
I agree. It sounds really good.
It's a beautiful definition.
That's amazing. Thank you, Valeria. I mean, I'm still thinking of the sea as a concept. It's so poetic, because it means that for him, the sea is not a place. I don't know. I launch myself into interpretations, maybe, but the sea is not a place of intersubjectivity again. I mean, it's not a place that stands for me and other persons, and we produce life and activities there. I don't know, saying that the sea is a concept puts this place in an area that is unchanging, abstracts, incapable of, producing meanings, but nevertheless is there available for him. I mean, speaking of intersubjectivity as a way of relating with each other, an answer like that is really powerful. And I do enjoy the gap that you're trying to fill in, to overcome, in trying to define autism not just as behavioral or only as biological, neurobiological problem, and emphasizing instead the role of intersubjectivity.
I think that I recently found another nice definition in a book that has been published this year, and that is authored by an autistic subject, Eric Garcia. The book is called "We Are Not Broken." Wonderful. And in the preface, he describes autistic people as people who are trying to navigate a world where the sign words are written in a language that they cannot understand. And this was really important for me, because it reminds me of another author and another person that plays an important role in my research, that is George Frankl. Because I think that his definition of autism is really revolutionary somehow, but for historical and political reasons, it remained hidden. And it seems to me that it reminds these words and this language problem, because while for instance, Kanner talks about neurobiological disturbances, Asperger's talks in terms of autistic psychopaths, so behavioral disturbances. In the same year, because he worked both with Asperger, and then because he was Jewish, he has to escape to Maryland, where he had the opportunity to work with Kanner, so a very interesting link. He was claiming that the problem in high-functioning autistic people is a problem of language.
Uh-huh.
And this is revolutionary because in the manuscript that is not published, because I suppose his PhD dissertation that he never finished.
Like many of us.
In this manuscript, he hypothesized a lot of compensatory language, and he claims that it's up to the caregivers in particular, but in any case, it's up to us, to the people that surround the autistic person, to basically to adopt the compensatory language of the autistic person and to adapt to them. So it's not, it's not the idea of, okay, the autistic person that is not able to tune with the society, and this is a problem. It's the opposite. We all have different kinds of expressing ourselves and our emotions, and autistic people have problem with what he called affective language and accordingly affective content. And for this reason, it's up to us to understand this different kind of language and to face with it and to cope with it. It's a revolution in my view. And it's also nice, yeah, because it's he describes language in different manners. To summarize, according to him, there are two kinds of language: word language, that comprises all verbal communicative symbols, and in this language is something that high-functioning autistic subjects can deal with very easily also. And then there is affective language. Affective language comprises all non-verbal communicative symbols like expressive gestures, affectivity, intercorporeality, and in my view, these notions corresponds perfectly to the phenomenological notions of intercorporeality. Also because, according to Frankl, the affective language is necessary for the arising of what he calls affective contact, that is interaffectivity, so our ability to be spontaneously engaged with others. So in his view, the problems in high-functioning autistic subjects is a problem in affective language, so only in the language. It's very important to notice, and accordingly to affective contact. So if we manage to coordinate, to synchronize ourselves with their affective language that is different from ours, we can restore also the affective contact, because they need affective contact like each of us.
Of course.
So I found really important this contribution.
And I know that you translated his work, a part of it, his work in Italian, which gives some justice to.
Yeah, even though it's not enough, because I don't think that many people bought that book. But it was also very funny because Frank, you cannot find Frankl's work or comments on it online. The psychiatrist I had the opportunity to work with in Pisa told me, have you read these recent books that were in a different key and neurotribes, where Frankl was mentioned? And he told me, it could be interesting to find out something more about him. So I have started a sort of Indiana Jones work.
Of course.
And I try, to follow his steps. And I also discovered a very nice romantic story behind it,
Tell
because
us.
yes, he had to escape to the USA because he was Jewish, but in that occasion he also had the opportunity to meet again Annie Weiss, who was a psychologist who worked in Vienna with him and Asperger, also in her case. And they met after 3 years and they got married. So
at
I
least
also
something good.
discovered a very nice story behind his life.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But in practical, I was bounced from one university to another because no one could tell me something more about him. And at the end, I managed to write to the University of Kansas, which is the last university where he worked. And they told me that they had this manuscript in their library, the Spencer Library. They had been super kind and they sent it to me. And it was a huge discovery for me as a phenomenologist.
Of course.
And because it could be anything, it could be a paper, it could be very clinical, but it was a big surprise.
So we hope you'll be able to translate it in English soon also, not just in Italian.
Let's hope.
So it's the work of George Frankl, because we have also the other more famous Victor. Yeah. And you mentioned the importance of affective language, which is the language through which we build a spontaneous connections with each other. I wonder if you ever found yourself in a situation in which you would have liked, you wished to connect with somebody who had problems with this language and you were at loss for answers. You had to try to find a way to build this language. What kind of personal advice besides the academic, scholarly ones you can give us?
Well, yes, I did. And I found out that I am quite good in tune in with many different kinds of affective language. So the story after Calambrone proceeded towards this direction because once I met Matteo, I realized that combining my philosophical study with this kind of experience was what I wanted to do, so to say. So I kept on trying, to develop interviews and to understand the sociality from different perspectives. So I had the opportunity to interview other people, also schizophrenic people. It was quite difficult. I have to admit that it was quite difficult. And then I ended up working in a research center within a psychiatric hospital. More specifically in Heidelberg, the research center is within a station where there are depressed patients. So I found myself very often in these peculiar atmospheres, so to say. The main important ones for me were when I did music therapy together with patients.
Yeah, I wanted to get there too.
Yeah, because together with a colleague from Parma, we wanted to understand sociality, but mostly in that specific occasion, intercorporeality, when we have the task of doing one thing together. So here in that specific occasion, the domain was, collective intentionality. So all that part of our emotional life that involves more than two person and also a common goal that we have to share together. So we ask ourselves, okay, what does it happen if persons who have different affective language, we can speak in this term, have to deal with a shared task, a task that requires our pre-reflective abilities, like music. And in order to do this kind of study, we spent 1 year in this lab, and we attended all the music therapy sessions. And of course, in order not to corrupt the answers of the interviewees, we didn't tell them that we were philosophers, but we were just musicians for them.
Why not?
And so we had free therapy.
That's a good deal to cut.
Yeah, a lot of fun, and we also had the opportunity to really know these persons. And I found myself sometimes in the situation you described, and in a very practical manner, I think that I just reply with an axo or just hanging the hand of the other, and one day a person kept my hand for the entire day, and he shut up for the entire day. But it seemed to be very comfortable, just to be close.
Right.
So, yeah.
Because there's some kind of myth around autism that you don't have to touch them to create a close contact. So you are telling us that it's a myth.
No. For the majority of the cases, this is true. But I think that they also have the need of the corporeal other, so to say. Let's think about the hugs machine. There is a very famous high-functioning autistic subject who built the hugs machine. So when she feels the need, she feels the desire to be hugged by someone, she uses this machine because she can also, have control on the other, so to say. So there is still the need for the other. The problem is that it's very difficult to spontaneously tune in with the other. So this is the main problem. Again, it's a problem of language. It's a problem of being different from what is considered normal, but.
And this is with the patients. So you described your interactions with patients, clients. So there's always a little bit of a professional wall.
Yeah, even though in that case, that specific case, in the case of music therapy, there were no, there was no hierarchy at all. No, not at all.
Not emotional walls. But with friends, family, have you ever experienced to have to learn how to generate this affective language continuously?
Yes, continuously, because I think that in any case, and this is something that probably my research path taught me, we are all fragile, we have all our vulnerabilities, and we all need different kinds of attention, so to say. And I am also usually people around me use me, so to say, to tell me about daily problems and so on. And I think that this happens because I have learned to not be judgmental. I don't have a judgmental attitude, so I make them feel comfortable somehow, or at least I hope.
It seems so. It seems so. I mean, did you learn it in your personal life and then philosophy helped you to refine it? Or did you learn it through philosophy and then this made it better in your personal life? What was the root?
I think that philosophy played a great role in shaping my personal identity. Yeah, because especially the subjects that the topics that I study, I mean, I also for my self-development as well. I'm still learning to listen to myself, to my emotions, to be self-aware and more present to the situations that happen to me. And yeah, again, phenomenology provides us with a powerful tool like the ebook. Okay, sometimes I try, when I am in a difficult situation, I stop and I try, to suspend all the unnecessary judgment, and I try to go to the essence of the problem, even though it's really complicated.
I know.
But I also think that somehow philosophy allowed us to, and here I am going to use Husserl's words, to navigate to the sea of suffering. I am reading the Grenzprobleme, which are amazing. In my view, it's wonderful Husserl that we can read. And in a wonderful passage that in my view is super poetic, he says that we are veiled and cloaked with the sea of suffering.
Wow.
Yeah, and it is also quite far away from if we think about the first Husserl. So it's not all about this pure transcendental subject, but this pure transcendental subject is deeply immersed into facticity and into vulnerability. So yeah, I think, or at least I'm trying to learn and to cope with the vulnerability and the complexity of existence, and I think that philosophy is a great help.
You mentioned at the very beginning that you had to change your home, your geographical home, plenty of times, and yeah, this is part of being a scholar. So if you love to travel, just try to take this academic career. Have you experienced often, or more or less often, the feeling of having to start from scratch over and over again, having to cope with this vulnerability in the effort of starting from scratch? Or can you share with us a personal moment in which you had to restart your life, how that it felt?
Yes, of course, and this happened also very recently, because exactly 1 year ago I had to move from Heidelberg to Leuven, and it was what the Jaspers would have called a leap for me. So yeah, because Heidelberg, even though I come from Tuscany, I come from Italy, I love Italy, and of course
you're not alone.
I found in Heidelberg my home and my place in the world, so to say, probably because it's where I had the opportunity to start my own research project, and Heidelberg is wonderful, and also the research environment was amazing. I had an amazing supervisor. So I spent 3 amazing years there, and for me it was super difficult to choose to interrupt my contract.
You interrupted the contract.
Yeah, I would have finished now in September 2021. So this is the main reason why it was less difficult, because I had 1 year left, but still 1 year. And then, I went here alone in the middle of the pandemic.
In the middle of the pandemic, not easy, right? Yeah.
So I moved my my apartment, 5 boxes from Germany to Leuven, and I arrived the exact week when the Belgian lockdown
Oi,
started.
oi, oi.
And the Belgian lockdown lasted 9 months.
And you were all alone.
And I was alone in this empty apartment because I have my own apartment and I can, decorate it as I want. But I was completely alone with this empty apartment with the eco because.
Yeah, because you couldn't even put furniture because everything was closed.
Luckily there was one sofa, so I slept
Okay.
on the sofa for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
and everything was closed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know the city because I went here only once for the interview, so I didn't visit the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't meet my colleagues.
Yeah.
I met them only through Zoom, but it's not the same. We still need intercorporeality.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it was very challenging, very, very challenging. But I found out my third love after phenomenology and psychopathology, that is carpentry. Because I had a lot of, it was also a big surprise because I am the clumsiest person in the world, but I found out that I'm very good in, assembling furniture. So I spent, I reinvented, I make up again myself, assembling furniture and painting furniture and trying to make this place as comfortable as possible.
What was the feeling that was more difficult to handle with during this time of restart in the middle of a pandemic nothingness?
Yeah, firstly, loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
because of course I was far away from my dear ones, and I didn't know when I could have had the opportunity to come back to Italy again. So I felt completely alone, and here I didn't know basically anyone. So it was a very strong feeling of loneliness. And on the other hand, also the fact that I had started a sort of blind path because, I have here, it's a beautiful place, I'm very grateful, I'm very happy about it, but who knows, I don't have the chance to go to my office, to meet my new colleagues, to actually see how this new job works concretely. So I was a little bit disoriented. The right word is disoriented.
How did you cope with that? Did you have a aha moment at some point that allowed you to understand? Okay, this is the way.
Well, I I am using again Jasper's expression because Jasper's claims that we need to face breaking situation, liminal situation, because it's through them, it's through the break that we found the meaning of existence.
Yes.
In German, he uses the expression Durchbruch, so through the break. So there has been no haha moment, but I think that I just went through the break. And I remember that at a certain point, I looked around and I saw a nice apartment. And, my books arrived, and I realized, okay, I'm here, I am alone, but I managed to move alone, to cope with the furniture alone, which seems to be stupid, but it's not.
No, I know.
Especially with IKEA furniture. And I'm still here, and I feel very good.
Yay.
And in the dream place for phenomenologists. So
yeah. And we say a warm hello to Thomas Fuchs, your supervisor, who is an amazing teacher, professor, scholar. You were formed by the best.
I was super lucky, both from an academic perspective, but also from a human perspective.
Human perspective. And look, how do you think people view you? Because you traveled a lot. You met with different kind of people, academics, clinical patients, your family. Why not? I mean, your friends. How do you think people view you?
Well, it depends. I mean, I think that for the people that do not belong to academia, it's quite difficult to understand what I do and why I do
Yeah,
this.
yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
I know that you understand. And yeah, so yeah, it has been, especially at the very beginning when I was doing my PhD, but also after my PhD, when I decided to proceed with the academic career. It was very difficult to make myself feel understood.
I know.
Because I mean, let's contextualize a little bit. I
Right.
came from a very small village in the middle of nowhere, and
What is it?
it's called Gragnola.
Well, yeah.
It's in Tuscany,
Beautiful.
1 hour to Pisa. Also, my parents didn't have study, and it's very difficult. It has been quite difficult for them to figure it out that I wasn't losing my time, but I was pursuing something beautiful for myself and also job speaking, so to say. So because I think that for some people I am the always Erasmus girl.
So you are in an ongoing Erasmus.
It's not. I think that being an academic and being an academic that does philosophy,
Yeah.
It's not conceived as a real job.
Not at all. At least not in Italy. Sorry to say.
At least not in Italy. So also my friends and so on ask me a lot of time, why are you doing this? Why you don't want to find a normal job? But it's what I am. I think that it's what I am. Of course, I come also from a very modest family, so I couldn't do philosophy, just for pleasure. Of course, I am sure that I will keep on doing philosophy for my pleasure, but I also have a plan B and C because I have always had to work. And I also did many different jobs before of academia.
Of course.
And
what did you do? What's your array of jobs as a philosopher besides philosophy?
Yeah, you cannot imagine how flexible we are as a philosopher. So I even work in public relations for some years, and I also went to some events, and I also did the museum guide at the printing museum. It was very nice. It was very nice. And at the tourism office during the summer, so I prepared my exams while I was working. It was, and then last year of my PhD, I also taught in a private high school.
Oh, sweet.
Humanities in general, so Latin, Greek, and yeah, it was nice. I mean,
and then your parents could understand what you were doing. I mean, as far as you do philosophy and you are yourself, okay, it's a little bit hazy.
Yeah.
But if you are a teacher in high school, then the role is clear, right?
Yes, of course, and this is the reason why I am also enrolled also now in the Italian high school system. Of course, I have never taught because I had the lucky to start immediately my academic career and to kept on that direction. But of course, I mean, for me, it's not a mission. It's I know because I did that I can also do something else, but it's yeah, as I said, it's something that really shaped my identity. As far as I can, I want to be loyal to myself.
That's very important.
Yeah, I think this is the main achievement. But also, of course, then of course with time, my parents and also my dear ones tried to understand, and they are very proud and they accept me as I am. And I think that this is another important achievement. But it's not easy to be a young girl in academic and to be very convinced in pursuing this path.
Yeah, to understand that your vocation is to break intellectual categories in concrete life. Because, you came to this world to do your part in breaking all categories concerning autism and helping autism to become what it is. So your loyalty to yourself is also the loyalty to a social cause. And, understanding that for yourself is already an enterprise, but making understand others, this, whoa.
Yeah.
So you are, this is funny, you are the Erasmus girl, more or less, the people view you as the Erasmus.
But it's also nice, because it's true that we travel a lot, and it's something that I really love. I love being tired because I have to run for my next flight and jump from one conference to another. Yeah. I really enjoy this lifestyle, so to say.
Yeah, that's the beautiful part of it. I agree with you. I like it very much also. Look, and what makes you feel valued? Since there's some kind of blindness around all the efforts you put in the world to do your part for the society, where do you gain your sense of value? What makes you feel valued?
In a very basic manner, already the fact that I managed to be somehow loyal to myself and to my dreams is something that it's really important to me. So I'm here. Yes, I have my dearest one far away. It's quite difficult, but I'm doing what is right for myself, so to say. So I think that this is an achievement and something that allows me also to live my relationships like a surplus, like something that really enriches me and not as a need. I don't look for my boyfriend or for my friends because I am in need of attention or of meaning for myself.
Right.
That as far as I'm able to feel more or less fine with myself, also the others is something that I can really respect and I can deeply and genuinely love.
Thank you, Valeria.
Yeah, on the other hand, concerning more specifically my work, as far as my research can be useful to overcoming stigma, to understand the diversity in all of its shapes. For me, it's a huge achievement. And also, I remember one episode, I was in Paris for a conference, and at the end, a person approached me, and he was a guy with the diagnosis of high functioning autism, and he told me that thanks to my words, he felt less pathologized.
That's beautiful.
And for me, this has been better of winning a grant, So it's through a paper of mine, I can make feel better only one person in the world. This is what makes me feel valued, and this is also what makes me proud of being a philosopher, because we are usually, considered like people who just think about random and incomprehensible stuff, but
Yes.
no, it's not like
Yeah.
that.
Thank you, Valeria. I really love this answer here because personally, I mean, I have plenty of students who, have to face the choice about their lives. What do I do after college? Should I pursue something that allows me to financially survive, or should I pursue my vocation, even if it feels so weird, so personal, so impossible to pursue? And yeah, it's challenging for me because as a philosopher, I more or less did what you did. I mean, in the end, I decided to remain loyal to myself, and I find that this can sustain a life. A life of work, of sacrifices, of efforts, remaining loyal to your vocation. And unfortunately, sometimes I see some of my students who go through paths that are clearly made to sustain themselves financially, and after a while they might go through nervous meltdown because of the amount of work, the schism between their own vocation and the life they are going through. So I don't know, I feel like reiterating the idea that being loyal to yourself with some good luck can also lead to financial, economic sustainability. I mean, it's not impossible to achieve. It's more adventurous. Maybe you need to be up for a little more adventure, but why not? I mean, life needs to be fun. Look, I would like to leave you with one last question, which is the more or less the essence of this meeting today. What do you think is the meaning of life? Yo,
This is
how
such a
would you,
difficult
from
question.
this
Yeah.
point in life, the Valeria that is here now, in this point in life, how would you summarize?
Well, yeah. For me, it means to be able to be loyal, to remain loyal to oneself, but at the same time, extremely open to the other. So
Beautiful.
this tension.
How can we be open to the other?
Well, by listening to them, and by respecting and trying to understand the different ways we have to express ourselves and our different fragilities.
So we listen when we take time to understand and see the fragilities, the vulnerabilities in ourselves and the others. So you think?
Yeah, what I think that I learned both thanks to my studies, but also thanks to personal experiences, is that interpersonal life is quite nuanced and quite complex. And sometimes we can find the richness of interpersonality, of intersubjectivity, indeed in its complexity.
Yeah.
So also in front of a very difficult situation of or in anomalous situation, we can find a wonderful other, a wonderful experience.
That's beautiful. I mean, each difficulty is an opportunity. Each complexity brings some kind of richness that we can discover. Yeah. Thank you so much for Valeria
No,
for
thank
this
you.
beautiful, beautiful interview. And I'm very happy you opened up with us today. Thanks
Thanks
so
a
much.
lot.